Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today we're talking about a module for TSR's old Marvel superheroes role playing game called Lone Wolves. But before we get into it, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell, and leave a comment. We've got an awesome community here, and it's all thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. With all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to this one takes place in New York City in 1984, when a riot involving more than 400 individuals is raging along 8th Avenue in Upper Manhattan. Several deaths have already occurred, and attempts to call in various superhero groups have failed. The National Guard forms a cordon around the affected area. Daredevil, Iron Fist, Mockingbird, and Power Man arrive on the scene. Iron Fist and Power Man are here partially because the riot is close to Lenny Lambertson's shop, and Lenny Lambertson hired them to figure out who's been robbing his store. Conversely, Daredevil is here because a woman hired him, named Rachel, because she thinks her son joined a street gang, and her apartment overlooks the riot. Mockingbird wasn't even supposed to be in this adventure. The module wanted it to be Black Widow, but we've been doing other things with Black Widow in our game world, so she was busy elsewhere. And I love Mockingbird. In fact, in real life, I named my daughter Bobby after her. Anyways, so Mockingbird is here because it's a riot, and she wants to help out in any way that she can. What the heroes do not yet know is that Craven the Hunter is behind this. He hired a villain named Vermin who can control rats. And when these rats bite a person, it fills them with savagery and rage. And since Vermin doesn't follow orders very well, Craven also hired Sabretooth to keep Vermin in line. Currently, Sabretooth is on the roof of Rachel's apartment building, while Vermin is in the alley behind Lenny's store. Since Iron Fist and Power Man are worried about Lenny, the heroes go that way and encounter Vermin. And as soon as they fight him, Sabretooth comes down from the roof and joins the fight. The heroes beat Vermin first, but Sabretooth is a huge pain in more ways than one. In the end, it's Power Man who knocks out Sabretooth. Daredevil interrogates Vermin, and when he lies, Daredevil can tell. After doing this for a while, Vermin not only admits that he works for Craven the Hunter, but he tells the heroes about the chemical in the rats that caused this whole mess. Iron Fist and Power Man own a business called Heroes for Hire, so everyone goes back there, and Mockingbird uses first aid to try to treat people's wounds as best as she can. While they're doing this, they hear a news report over the radio that Craven the Hunter broke into the Brooklyn Zoo and stole several lions and tigers. He almost got away with it, but the night watchman caught a glimpse of him as he herded the cats aboard a truck. So Iron Fist calls one of his street contacts, who in turn tells him that Kingpin hired Craven the Hunter to do some dirty work. So once they heal a little bit, the heroes head to the Fisk building in Midtown. Kingpin is in the business offices on the 18th floor. There's a guard armed with a handgun in the lobby and another in the security offices on the 18th floor. The Kingpin knows when the visitors come calling. For the heroes, he's arranged a little exercise. The elevator, while seeming to stop at the 18th floor, actually stops at the 10th floor, where 6 unarmed thugs jump the heroes from all sides as they exit the elevator. The heroes are already hurting, and every muscle aches, but their stats are still way better than that of the thugs, so the heroes beat them all until they're knocked out. Once the heroes get to the business offices on the 18th floor, the Kingpin greets them pleasantly. He apologizes for any inconvenience his men may have caused them. He explains that he likes to keep them on their toes. After a few moments of idle conversation, the Kingpin says, So, you tell me you're interested in Craven. Hmm, it would seem our interests coincide. His last payment to me was in counterfeit currency. I would be pleased if you would be so kind as to arrest him for me. He is currently laired at the vacant Hawk Animal Research Laboratories building. The turn after the Kingpin says where the lair is, the Punisher attacks. He was waiting outside on the window ledge. The Punisher's goal is to kill the Kingpin. And this is the moment this adventure went sideways. Almost everything Punisher does next is a critical success. So the heroes are already bloody and beaten and low on hit points. They're supposed to protect the Kingpin from the Punisher, but the Punisher is at full health and is a walking arsenal. According to the module, the first round he can only fire non-lethal rounds. So he uses those on the heroes, getting him out of his way. The first hero to get knocked out is Daredevil. Iron Fist punches Punisher, but can't get through his bulletproof armor. Mockingbird also hits Punisher, doing no damage. Punisher then shoots Iron Fist, knocking him out. Kingpin attacks Punisher with a laser, and Punisher knocks out Mockingbird. Power Man swings at Punisher, but Punisher sidesteps it and knocks out Power Man. So by himself, the Punisher just took out the entire party. Kingpin presses a button to summon his men, who won't be here for a few rounds, and Punisher shoots the Kingpin with his M16. Kingpin wears poor body armor, has a walking stick that can fire 3 laser blasts, and has a stick pin with sleep gas for all the good it does him. Meanwhile, the Punisher mutilates the Kingpin. Honestly, I read over the module a couple times, and I don't know why they thought that wouldn't happen. Kingpin is supposed to show up later and do some stuff, but that is not going to happen now. The heroes wake up in the back of Punisher's van on the way to the Hawk Animal Research Laboratories building. They ask what happened to Kingpin, and the Punisher tells them he killed him. Daredevil then argues against it. The Punisher says that Wilson Fisk had organized all of the East Coast gangs under his leadership. He controlled all crime in the area, especially in New York. At one time, he was even the leader of Hydra. He was publicly known as the Kingpin of crime, but nobody ever managed to convict him. So the Punisher says he did the world a favor. Then he gets in Daredevil's face and says everyone the Kingpin killed because Daredevil refused to put him 6 feet under where he belonged, all those deaths are on Daredevil's head. They finally arrive at the Hawk Animal Research Laboratories building, and Punisher grabs his guns and heads inside, leaving the heroes tied up in his van. Mockingbird manages to slip out of her handcuffs, though, and comments that the Punisher must be used to dealing with guys who have bigger wrists than she does. Mockingbird unlocks everyone's handcuffs, and the heroes head in. They hear gunshots, and when they get there, they find a dead panther that attacked the Punisher. Just then, a snake attacks the party. Power Man grabs it by the tail and swings it into a tree, knocking it out. Iron Fist says he's never seen a man do that before. Daredevil says neither have I. They search the area and encounter more snakes, then another panther. Power Man is the strongest and most durable, so they let him handle the Black Panther and he knocks it out. He does the same thing to a leopard and a white tiger. They hear a truck leaving, so they follow it, and it's Craven running from the Punisher. The heroes try to follow, but they don't have a vehicle, so Craven the Hunter gets away. Craven reports in to MODOK, who is in the process of trying to take back control of AIM. Craven works for MODOK right now, as does Taskmaster. Craven tells him that the Punisher is after them, and MODOK informs Craven that Kingpin is dead. With him dead, a massive gang war is about to take place in New York City. MODOK asks if Craven was followed, and he doesn't think he was. But just to be sure, all three villains leave. MODOK orders his henchmen to pack up and wipe all the computers of any information that the Punisher might use to track him down. Taskmaster tells MODOK he could take Punisher in a fight. MODOK says, "You're welcome to try." Taskmaster thinks it over, and in the end, he leaves with the others. Which brings us to the epilogue, which is that Luke Cage takes everyone to Claire Temple, who uses her medical skills to try to patch him up after a night gone horribly wrong. And that's it for this one. Speaking of things that went horribly wrong, I cannot think of a module we have ever played that went worse than this one. I think this one takes the cake. Back in the 90s, this is going to seem really out of left field, but give me a minute. Back in the 90s, I played a game called GURPS Supers quite a bit. And at one point, I really wanted to work for the company. I wanted to write GURPS books. And so I got a hold of Steve Jackson Games, who were the publishers, and I asked them as a college student, what should I be doing so that I have like the resume you're looking for? And when they got back to me, I was really surprised by the answer, which was they said it wasn't so much about being a good writer as it is being a fast writer. And I've I've met other people who worked in the industry since then, and that seems to be the consensus. I think that was the industry standard back in the day. And so I'm not trying to insult the person who wrote this module, but I just wonder if there was a deadline and maybe they didn't have as much time to read over it. Because, for instance, in the Marvel modules, the way it goes is, let's say you're playing a Captain America adventure where you fight the Red Skull. At the end of the chapter, it will sort of say, if Captain America won, he gets this many points for beating Red Skull. If the Red Skull won, Captain America loses this many points as a consequence of losing to the Red Skull. And if you look in this module, I notice in multiple chapters, there are scenarios that are just not covered in the points section. And I know that the average player can probably think of something that is never covered in the points section. But I mean, the really obvious things, like usually if they introduce a character, for every character introduced, they should give you points for what happens if that character is knocked out, what happens if that character wins, right? They don't do that with the Kingpin at all. It's as if it never even enters their mind that someone could take out the Kingpin. And then I look at the stats that they give everybody, and I have no idea why they thought that, why they would think it was impossible. And, the idea of the Punisher using lethal damage, the module even specifies he can't do lethal damage on his first turn, but that's it. So then the opposite must be true. He must be able to kill on the second turn, right? That's how we interpret it anyway. And then if you look at his stats in the back of the book where they give him a character sheet, they are giving you ammo options between what I assume is supposed to represent rubber riot bullets that knock out your enemies, which is what he would have used on the other heroes, versus normal bullets, which is what he would use on the Kingpin, because the module even says that's his goal, is to kill the Kingpin. But expecting the heroes to fight the Punisher and defend the Kingpin, I think that's a pretty big leap. At least in our group, our guys didn't, want to do that. Their heart wasn't in it. Um, in fact, Punisher was an NPC, but a bunch of guys wanted to switch over to playing Punisher. They wanted it to just become a Punisher game about killing all these villains in the book. But that was my experience. If you've played this module, I would be very curious to hear how it went when you played it. Also, I will say this, I never see this module anywhere these days. There's a franchise where I live called Used Books. I don't know if they have that where you live or not. But at any rate, because with some franchises, I assume everybody has one. And then through the internet, I talk to somebody and it turns out they don't have that thing. And I'm always kind of surprised. But at any rate, the point is, it's a place you can go and buy old books for very, very low prices. And I've gotten just tons of role-playing stuff there over the years. It's great, especially for old out-of-print systems from the 80s and stuff like that. And as a result, I have a pretty good collection of both Marvel superheroes and DC heroes. But at any rate, my long-winded point is that I never see this one there. And so I just kind of wonder, because I would say I had a bad experience playing this game, if we're being really honest. I mean, I kind of like, in a way, that Kingpin died. I think it's interesting. But in terms of playing the heroes they want you to play, I found it to be just a frustrating slog of a game. From the get-go with the rats and the riot and everything, the numbers are just against you. Fighting Sabretooth, as tough as he is, and he has a healing factor, and the heroes don't. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff stacked against him. I feel like the whole module um is kind of one-sided and it's not in the hero's favor. You know what I mean? Um, and sometimes that can be cool. I just didn't feel like this was one of those times. And like I say, I kind of just get the vibe it was rushed. It seems like it needed to be play tested or something so that people could come back and say, hey, we're having problems with this part or that part or whatever. And to me, it just doesn't have the same feel as the other Marvel modules of 1984. And if I'm correct, it's the last module of 1984. And I wonder if that had something to do with it too. But I don't know. So if you've played it, I'd be curious to hear about it. Or maybe this just reminds you of a game you were in where things went horribly wrong. Sometimes those are fun stories. I would love to hear about it. So put it in the comments section. While you're at it, hit like, hit subscribe, ring the bell, all that jazz. And until we see you next time, we hope you have a good one, and we'll catch you in the next adventure. Bye.